Good morning. This is Dr. Rajaram. Welcome to the Department of Microbiology. Today's lecture is on Introduction to Mycology. You know that study of fungi is called as mycology. Study of isolation and identification of fungi that causes diseases in human is called as medical microbiology. So these fungi can cause human infection from very simple superficial infections like dermatophytic infection to fatal infections which can cause invasive candidemia, fungemia and cause death. Fossiliated specimens have been studied in Canada and it shows that the fungi are present in the soil for more than a billion of years. So such is the time since which the fungi have been identified. And these fungi are highly diversity in nature. They are next to insects in diversity, and there are more than 80,000 species of fungi in the environment. So a study of these fungi which causes human infection is very important, more so in the present scenario wherein we are able to control majority of the bacterial infections, and in addition use of higher antibiotics, use of immunosuppressor drugs or increased intensive care unit treatments, all these are predisposed to the fungal infections compared to the olden time. So what are fungi? The fungi are aerobic organisms and they are heterotrophic. That is, they can't synthesize the carbohydrates by themselves, but they have to depend on other organisms for the carbohydrates. And these are eukaryotic in nature and they got a cell wall which is very rigid in nature, and the cell wall is made up of chitin, mannan and other polysaccharides. Also it is having a cytoplasmic membrane with sterols on it. So it is a cytoplasmic membrane with sterols is present. The fungi, all the fungi are having a clear cut nuclei with its nuclear membrane, and there are paired chromosomes within the nucleus. So these fungi which are present in the environment are also sometimes they are beneficial to the human and sometimes they are even harmful to the human being. So what are the fungi, how they are useful to the human? So in the environment they are highly useful in decaying the organic matter. There are some fungi like mushrooms which are edible. There are some fungi like yeasts which are essential and they produce cofactors and vitamins. There are fungi named penicillium that is helpful for the preparation of antibiotics, And also there are certain fungi called as Claviceps purpura. This fungi will produce what is called as ergot alkaloids. These ergot alkaloids are useful in enhancing uterine contractions. For example, in the prevention of postpartum hemorrhage, where there is uterine relaxation there, these ergot preparations can be used for the control of PPH. These act by controlling the uterine contractions or improving the uterine contractions. However, the same fungi are also having some disadvantages, like all the mushrooms are not edible, but some of them are poisonous. These fungi usually not only decay the organic matter but also damage some of the wood or furniture in the houses. They may contaminate the food, and it produces toxins which results in fungal diseases or mycetism, or it may produce mycotoxicosis. We will be knowing it in detail afterwards. Also, these fungi, apart from decaying the all organic matter, so these fungi which produces some advantages, like used for the antibiotic production, like penicillins. Some of them are edible. There is another fungi like Saccharomyces cerevisiae. This is useful for the production for use of DNA hybridization technology. By this, we know that hepatitis B vaccine has been also prepared. And so, apart from uses, the disadvantages mainly include they may produce minor injuries or minor fungal infection to fatal terminal fungal infections. So, what are these fungi? These fungi may present as yeast. Yeast is nothing but a budding cell. From budding cell, they may go into elongation of this cell and tubular formation called as hyphae. The entangled mass of this hyphae is called as mycelium. So, coming out this, it could be a round cell like yeast cell, or this may elongate like that and produce the hyphae. It may produce the hyphae, and this hyphae, entangled mass of hyphae, is called as mycelium. Sometimes from this bud there is elongation of the cell, but there is no detachment of the cell, and there is a stoppage of elongation. Budding occurs, and this budding prolongs as a tubular fashion, and it will not be detached. Non-detachment or not complete elongation of this tubular structure is known as pseudomycelium. So, it could be a yeast, a round cell going into elongation and tubular formation is called as a hyphae. Tubular cell, yeast cell becoming tubular but only for a certain extent, and non-detachment and non-elongation further results in pseudomycelium. So, this is about the fungal in general. These fungi which are called as mycelium, or which is formed by hyphae, this hyphae will be having at regular intervals some septa. At regular intervals there are septa, and these septa are also having pores. So, these septa give rigidity to the hyphae. The septa give rigidity or strongness to the hyphae. Apart from that, there are folds, intercommunicating folds, so that the cytoplasm may move it from this side to that side. That is about the hyphae. So, this hyphae could be pigmented in some species like Cladosporium species. This hyphae, on the walls of the hyphae, there may be melanin pigment. On the walls of the hyphae. This melanin pigment will give black or brown color to the fungal growth. Such hyphae are called as diatomaceous fungi. They are called as diatomaceous fungi. Fungi wherein there is melanin pigment on the walls with the fungal growth taking as black or brown color. Such fungi, example Cladosporium, are called as diatomaceous fungi. There are certain other fungi which are totally colorless, which are not, which are non-pigmented. They are called as hyaline hyphae. They are called as hyaline hyphae. Hyaline fungi. Hyaline, that is fungi where the hyphae are non-pigmented, called as hyaline fungi, or fungi where there is melanin pigmentation are called as diatomaceous fungi. Then, based upon the nature of the fungal hyphae, we can know that what is the difficult morphology or different morphologies of the hyphae. For example, this is the hyphae, this could be a septate hyphae, non-septate hyphae, that is okay. Apart from that, for example, in Trichophyton mentagophytes, in such fungi, what happens now? The hyphae will take a spiral shape. Such fungi, for example, includes, that is, as Trichophyton mentagophytes, which shows spiral hyphae. For example, Microsporum canis. In this, the hyphae will take a nodular shape. They form a nodule-like shape. Such, that is called as nodular hyphae. The example includes Microsporum canis. Some, for example, the hyphae at the terminal end of the hyphae, there may be some multiple branching. Such hyphae are called as favic chandeliers. It is called as favic chandeliers. Example, Trichophyton schonlini. Sometimes the fungi, the hyphae, exhibits at one end some projections. At one end, it produces some projections. For example, it is called as pectinate body. That is, here the hyphae exhibits at one end only some projections. This appearance gives a broken comb. It gives a broken comb appearance. Example for this includes Microsporum adoni. Sometimes the fungi, the hyphae, may exhibit something like called as a racket hyphae. They exhibit that is a swelling at one end. It exhibits a racket hyphae. Examples it is called as a racket hyphae. Example, Epidermophyton flocosum. So these are the hyphae. Different types of hyphae we must be remembering while studying about the hyphae. So there may be pigmentation or which is called as diatomaceous fungi, or plain without any pigmentation called as hyaline hyphae. And apart from that, different species of the fungi will show different hyphal morphology. For example, it could be a spiral hyphae in case of Trichophyton mentagophytes, a nodular hyphae in case of Microsporum canis, or it could be a pectinate body formation, otherwise called as broken comb appearance in case of Microsporum adoni, or it could be a favic chandelier wherein there is at the end of the hyphae there will be multiple branching, which is called as favic chandelier, as is seen in Trichophyton schonlini, or it could be a racket hyphae where there is bulging at one end, which is seen in Epidermophyton flocosum. These are some types of hyphae. Then there is what is called as a classification of fungi. The fungi has been classified by two methods. One is morphological classification, the other one is the systematic classification, wherein the studies of spore, nature of the spore has been taken for the classification. So what is the morphological classification of the fungi? It has been classified into two types, namely morphological classification and systematic classification. Coming on to the morphological classification, morphologically the fungi has been divided into four types, namely yeast and yeast-like, molds or dimorphic fungi and dimorphic fungi. So this is the morphological classification. What it says in the morphological classification, yeast means it is a, here the example is Cryptococcus neoformans. Here it is a, yeast is a typical bud. It is a typical round shaped or spirule which undergoes reproduction by budding. So that is yeast. Example, a round or spherical cell which undergoes reproduction by budding, which is a yeast. Here the examples include Cryptococcus neoformans. Then the yeast-like fungi. Example, Candida species. Here what happens now? There is a cell, a bud, which there is a round cell which undergoes budding, and the budding prolongs like a tubular structure and stops. It neither detaches or it will neither there is neither continuous elongation nor detachment. So this type of fungi is seen in Canada and it is called as yeast-like fungi, and it is here there is forming, this is called as pseudomycelium. Then comes the molds. These molds are also called as filamentous fungi. Filamentous fungi. Here the examples include dermatophytes. Here they present asexual spores, or otherwise called as macroconidia and microconidia. We will discuss these are otherwise called as the filamentous fungi with hyphae are present. And the other thing is called, the another morphological classification is the dimorphic fungi. This, as the name says, it is two morphological appearance is present. So these are usually present, take a yeast-like form in the host. A human is the host, for example, or a cat is the host. So in the host it takes a yeast-like form, and also in cultures and 37 degrees centigrade of the culture. Then it also takes a filamentous form at 22 degrees centigrade or in the cultures. It's dimorphic fungi. So a majority of the fungi which causes human infection are dimorphic in nature, namely majority of the infections are called as histoplasmosis, blastomycosis, or so dimorphic infections. So this is about the morphological classification, where it could be yeast, example Cryptococcus neoformans, where round cell or cell is present which undergoes reproduction by budding, or yeast-like which is called as Candida. Here pseudomycelium formation is seen. Molds are filamentous fungi, example dermatophytes. Here both we can see which causes some of the cutaneous infections, and dimorphic fungi which exhibits two types of forms, yeast-like form in the host or at 37 degrees, or filamentous fungi which is exhibited filament shape at 22 degrees centigrade or in the culture. So what I mean this thing, these fungi exhibits in the growth, if at all it is they are growing in, if it is grown in the culture, it exhibits two types of mycelia, namely one is the vegetative mycelium and the second one is the aerial mycelium. So here the vegetative mycelium is the one where the fungi will grow into the medium, It is called as vegetative mycelium. Sometimes from this vegetative mycelium there may be projections outside. Such mycelia are called as aerial mycelium. So a vegetative mycelium, it could be a vegetative mycelium or aerial mycelium, and morphologically it could be a yeast-like form, molds and dimorphic form. Then there is what is called as systematic classification. Systematic you know that the fungi produces asexual sexual spores, and they can divide both asexually or sexually. So this systematic classification is based on sexual spores. So based on that they have been divided into Phycomycetes. So what are Phycomycetes? These Phycomycetes are also called as lower fungi. It exhibits asexual spores. These Phycomycetes exhibits asexual spores which are called as endogenous asexual spores. Endogenous asexual spores. Here what happens now? For example, this is the mature growth. There is a growth, a branch. This branch ends as a vesicle, and over the vesicle there is a sac-like structure called as sporangia. Vesicle. This branch is called as sporangiophore. And inside the sac they are called as spores, and these spores are called as sporangiospores. So this is the sporangium, this is the branch is called as sporangiophore. The sporangiophore ends as a vesicle, and within the sac-like structure there present, which the sac is called as sporangia, and in the sporangia there present asexual spores which are endogenous in nature called as sporangiospores. So this is about asexual spores. Apart from that, these Phycomycetes produces sexual spores, namely oospores and zygospores, either of them. So systematic classification, the first one is the Phycomycetes, which is otherwise called as lower fungi, and these are having hyphae which are non-separate in nature, and this hyphae shows a branch called as sporangiophore, and the sporangiophore ends as a vesicle to form a sac-like structure called as sporangia, and this sporangia is filled with asexual spores, namely sporangiospores, and this Phycomycetes also produces asexual spores, namely oospores and zygospores. So this is also called as lower fungi. Next comes the higher fungi. The next three are called as higher fungi. These higher fungi also produces asexual spores. They also produces asexual spores, and these asexual spores may be conidia. These conidia The conidia are exogenous in nature. These are exogenous in nature, and here the septa are hyphae are septate in nature. That is, hyphae are septate in nature, and from the hyphae there occurs a branching called as conidiophore. A branching is called as a conidiophore, and this conidiophore ends as a columella, and over this columella there present fillets, and over the fillets there present conidia, maybe one or many. So this is about the conidia. Usually the example include the Aspergillus species. So in higher fungi there may be conidia. Then among this is asexual spores. Coming into the sexual spores in higher fungi, Ascomycetes. So systematic classification, Phycomycetes, which is a lower fungi, and higher fungi, again they are three in number. So under systematic classification, one is Phycomycetes, second one is Ascomycetes. Here sexual spores are formed in a sac-like structure called as ascus. They are formed in a sac-like structure called as ascus. Next is the Basidiomycetes. Basidiomycetes, here the sexual spores are formed on a base. They are formed on a base. Then there is another common one which is called as fungi imperfecti. Fungi imperfecti, otherwise called as Deuteromycetes. Deuteromycetes. Here, what is the basis for systematic classification? The basis for systematic classification is sexual spores. Though I have studied about the sexual spores also, the basis is sexual spore formation. In Phycomycetes, the sexual spores are called as noospores or zygospores. In Ascomycetes, they are producing a ascus, and Basidiomycetes they are producing on a base, and fungi imperfecta, otherwise called as Deuteromycetes. The sexual stage, among these fungi, the sexual nature is not well understood. So that's why it is called as fungi imperfecta, otherwise called as Deuteromycetes. Majority of the human infections are caused by, majority of the medical infections, human infections are caused by this fungi imperfecta. Then, so this is a systematic classification. We know that there are conidiospore, conidia. So based on this conidia may be are divided into microconidia, which are single celled, and they can be macroconidia. These microconidia or macroconidia are useful for the classification of dermatophytes. So these macroconidia are multicellular in nature. Apart from that, these macroconidia may take different forms, different shapes. They may take different shapes. For example, these macroconidia, as in usually in dermatophyte, this macroconidia. So macroconidia are multicellular, microconidia are single celled. Shapes, they may be pencil shaped, pencil or cigar shaped in case of Trichophyton. They could be pencil shaped or cigar shaped in trichophyton. They could be spindle shaped in case of microsporum. They could be club shaped. Club shaped in case of epidermophyton. So this is about the macroconidia and microconidia. Then we have studied about the hyphae, no? This hyphae, apart from the pigmentation, apart from taking different shapes, they also exhibit certain characteristic features, namely this hyphae, the hyphae got condensed and become thickened. Such nature is called as arthrospores. These are called as arthrospores. Also, in certain situations like in the Candida species, during unfavorable conditions like in the bad weather, this hyphae got rounded up and swollen, and these are called as chlamydospores. They are called as chlamydospores. And they may form basidospores wherein there is rounding up of the cells. So this is about the hyphae and the morphological and systematic classification of fungi. Then what are the diseases produced by these fungi? As an introductory class, let us know what are the names of different diseases produced by these fungi. Then we can go in detail about each and every fungi. So these fungi can produce superficial infections, deep infections, or that is called superficial mycosis or mycotic infection. Deep infections are deep mycotic infections, and opportunistic fungal infections, organ specific infections, or what is called as infections because of toxins, fungal toxins, or otherwise called as mycotoxicosis. So it produces superficial, so each and every part is affected, so it could produce a superficial infection, otherwise called as superficial mycosis, deep mycotic infections, opportunistic fungal infections, or organ specific infections, or toxin, that is mycotoxicosis or mycetism. So what are the superficial fungal infections it produces? In the superficial fungal infections, it is of again two types. One is surface infection or surface fungal infection, and second one is the cutaneous infection. Surface infection or second one is the cutaneous infection. In the surface infection, what are they? So these surface infections usually causes infection of the superficial dead layer of the skin. So it produces infection of the superficial or dead layer of the skin. So what happens once it is a dead layer means there is no inflammation from this one, no inflammatory reaction. So what are the infections it produces? Example includes trichophyton, Pedra is one of the infection. Pityriasis versicolor or otherwise called as tinea versicolor. So what happens here, there is no inflammation, but it produces superficial infection so that there will be change in the color. That is, it gives cosmetically disfigurement, cosmetic problems. So because of changes in the skin, cutaneous versicolor, it produces entire body whitish something discoloration like that. So it produces peidra or cutaneous versicolor where there is no inflammation but there causes discoloration. Then the superficial mycotic infection, which is a surface infection which is produces peidra or cutaneous versicolor, there also then comes the cutaneous infection. So here in the cutaneous infection, the superficial cornified layer of the skin, is affected. So it is usually limited to the cornified layer. As it is involved in the layers, it produces inflammation. It produces inflammatory changes. And sometimes it may produce allergic infections, allergy called as heat reactions. It may produce heat reaction. Examples include infections produced by dermatophytes, or infections produced by Candida. Candida is an organism which can cause superficial infection or endogenous deep infection, or it produces opportunistic infection. We'll know it in detail about it afterwards. So that is superficial mycotic infections, surface infection or cutaneous infection. Next comes the deep infections. In the deep infections, there are two types again. Subcutaneous infections. Subcutaneous and next one is a systemic infection. Systemic fungal infections. In the subcutaneous, that is here below the cuticle layer, the infection occurs. That is subcutaneous. For example, it includes what is called as rhinosporidiosis, example. These are examples: rhinosporidiosis, mycotic mycetoma, chromoblastomycosis, sporotrichosis, so these are some of the subcutaneous fungal infections. Then comes the systemic infections, that is involvement of the body into the interior of the body. Examples include cryptococcosis, histoplasmosis, blastomycosis, coccidiomycosis, paracoccidiomycosis. So these are what are the deep mycotic infections? Include subcutaneous infections like rhinosporidiosis, mycotic mycetoma, chromoblastomycosis, sporotrichosis. And systemic infections include cryptococcosis, histoplasmosis, blastomycosis, coccidiomycosis, and paracoccidiomycosis. Then what are the opportunistic? So these are the opportunistic infections. That is, whenever there is an opportunity, they by themselves they does not cause infections, severe infection or fatal infection. Whenever there is opportunity, they will produce infections. This includes, one is Aspergillus, Mucor, Penicillium. Apart from that, in the opportunistic infection, whenever there is immunity is gone, it also certain two infections. That is, this Cryptococcus also comes as an opportunistic infection. This opportunistic infections include Aspergillus species, Mucor infections, and Penicillium. Apart from that, there may be, whenever the immunity of the individual is gone, this Cryptococcus infection also takes an opportunity to cause fungal infection. So, and also Cryptococcosis, and also this Candida. Though they are cutaneous infection, the Candida, it can produce a systematic infection as an opportunistic infection. This Cryptococcus also produces severe infection. These are the opportunistic infections. Then, what are the organ specific? In the organ specific infection, there present organisms that causes oculomycotic infections and oculum is eye, where there is eye involvement, and next is the automycosis, where there is involvement of the ears. That is some of the organ specific fungal infections. Then it produces mycotoxicosis, it is because of toxins produced by fungi. These include fungal aflatoxins or ergotoxins. So these are the fungal infections. So if you see in the generalized picture, what happens? It starts from the surface infection to the deep infection, systematic infection. Any part of the body can be attacked by the fungi. So it is a causes infection from the head to toe nail. So these are the fungal infections. Once we came to know what are the fungal infections, then how we are going to proceed, or how we are going to diagnose. So what the diagnosis, what you want? The samples or specimens. So what are the specimens you want to like? Because it involves both systematic infection and it involves surface infection. So any sample starting from the hair, nail, skin scrapings, scrapings, blood, biopsy sample. Which biopsy sample? Depending upon the site of involvement, like skin, subcutaneous nodules or rhinosporides, what are the sample you can take. So any sample can be taken and it is examined, pulmonary tissue. So these are the different samples which can be, or for Cryptococcus is CSF. So these are the various samples that can be used for the diagnosis. Then what are the methods of diagnosis of fungal infection? Methods of diagnosis of fungal infection. So once you have received the samples, you have to proceed for the diagnosis. In the diagnosis, one is the wet mount. Then in the wet mount, what you have to take the scrapings, hair, nail, all those things, and keep it under 10% to 20% KOH. So this helps for the it is a wet mount preparation. Here what happens, we can see the hyphae. You can see the hyphae. So in any case, if you see budding cell with hyphae, in a single microscopic field, it could be usually because of yeast. There is hyphae means usually pseudohyphae. So a budding cell with pseudohyphae in a single microscope field, it is usually you have to go in terms of yeast. Or a thin septate hyphae, which produce acute angles, acute branching, which shows acute branching. It could be because of Aspergillus. It could be because of Aspergillus. A non-septate hyphae, which is showing branching at 90 degrees, which is showing branching at 90 degrees. It could be because of mucormycosis. So this is about the wet mount preparation. A KVH mount where you can see budding cell, or you can see the Aspergillus species with acute angling, or this one. Next, here also there we can, under fluorescent microscope we can use chalcofluoro white staining. In the chalcofluoro white staining, what happens now, if you see under this under fluorescent microscope, this chalcofluoro white got the capacity to go and attach to the fungal walls. That is, the fungal walls will be thickened. So it helps for the identification of presence or absence of fungi. Chalcofluoro white staining. Next comes the gram staining. In the gram stain also, we can see small yeast cells with pseudohyphae. It could be Candida, or multiple yeast cells. Because of the small size, we can see under gram stain, the small size of yeast cells, we can see the histoplasmosis. So that is a gram stain. There is another stain called as Indian ink stain. In the Indian ink stain, what happens under the dark ground dark background, because of Indian ink stain, because of Indian ink against the dark background, if organisms like Cryptococcus is present, the capsule will be seen as a hollow sign. It is seen as a hollow sign. Hollow sign. It is against the dark background, because of Indian ink preparation. Or these yeast cells, in case of blastomycosis, under dark background of Indian ink, they may be seen as figure of 8 appearance, where on a broad base of yeast cell there is a budding. This is called as we can think in terms of blastomycosis. So these are the some of the stains. Apart from that, there are specific stains, namely fluorescent antibody stains. Fluorescent antibody staining. So if there is a specific antibody is there, so by using specific antibody, we can find out from the any of these specimens even a tiny amount of fungal element if it is present, or fungal antigen if it is present. Here, what is the specialty here is we need a fluorescent specific antibody. So again, there is another examination called as Wurtz lamp examination, wherein there is a fluorescence of the hair because of presence of fungal or dermatophytes. That is a Wurtz lamp examination. Next, we know that there is a biopsy specimen, because it presence of fungi in the biopsy. That is histopathological examination for fungal invasion can be done. So identification of invasive fungi can be done by histopathological examination. Here, what happens? What are the different stains used? Includes periodic acid shift staining, or hematoxylin and eosin staining, methenamine silver staining, it is after methenamine silver staining, Mayer's Musi-Cormain staining. So these are the different stains that can be used for the histopathological examination of fungi. So this is a very good, these are some good stains for the identification of invasive fungi. However, what happens here now, these stains will stain the fungi, and this results in produces difficulty whether the infection is because of diatomaceous fungi or because of hyphae, because here these stains stain the fungi. We know that fungi which are blackish brown because of melanine pigmentation are called as demitatious fungi, or non-pigmented are called as hyaline hyphae. But that separation is not possible because of this here the stains will stay in the fungi. This is about the histopathological examination of different stains that can be used. Then we know that there is a serology. That serology also can be used. Blood is taken, and this serology includes serological diagnosis, serodiagnosis. This is one is for antigen detection, 2 by antibody detection, and 3 immunohistochemistry. And this is about routine antigen antibody and immunohistochemistry. Also, this is called what is called as molecular methods of diagnosis, wherein we can use PCR, RT-PCR, DNA hybridization. With these techniques, we can also identify the fungi. So these are all the different wet mount preparation, staining methods or serological methods, they are one set of diagnosis. Then all these are called as non-cultural methods of diagnosis. Then comes the cultural methods. That is, we have to, the sample is taken and should be cultured, which is, so the culture, here we can use Sabrot's dextrose agar. This is the most important media that wherein we can identify. Here the pH is 5.4 and it is having antibiotics to minimize the bacterial contamination. It is also having actidione to minimize the non-human fungal infections. So actidione, pH, this is about Sabrot dextrose agar, and there is other media called as corn meal agar, and Japek dox medium. So there is what is called as dermatophyte test medium. So there is the specific media for the identification of different organisms. So diagnosis can be made by using staining wet mounts, staining procedures, serological methods, and by culture. So once you have done the diagnosis, what are the treatment? The treatment includes topical and systematic. Topical and systematic. The topical we will be using what is that? Tolnaftate, clotrimazole. These are the topical application that can be used. Systematic, orally we can use greasephulvine, ketoconazoles, fluconazoles. Parentally, amphotericin B. So this is about the completion of introduction to the mycology. So that completes this class. Thank you.